What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, Wave 4 of the Transformers trading card game is out now. And that means that we've got an FAQ and a new rules roundup. Now, the rules roundup we definitely aren't going to be getting to in this video, but don't worry, I've got your back. You know, when rulings are coming out, Wossy's here to explain them to you. It's kind of my thing. So we've got an FAQ to do today, and we're going to see how it goes. It might be split into two videos. Right now on the screen, you can see if it's being split into two. I actually can't. I'm going to have to figure it out as I go along. We'll see how we go. So starting off then, bounty skills. Bounty skills are the new things that we see on the mercenaries, which of course have made their debut in War for Cybertron Siege 2. If we take Nightbird as an example, we've got a lovely little bounty skill in bot mode. When you do enough attack damage to KO an enemy, you get to play an action from your opponent's scrap pile. It's pretty brilliant. But we do have some questions about them. What are they? Well, there are two parts to a bounty ability. A trigger condition that tells you to use its ability, and the bounty ability itself that gives you a reward. But in this set, all the conditions are the same. When the character does enough attack damage to KO an enemy, but the rewards are different on each card. Now, this is really interesting because there is a strong implication here that we might in the future get bounty abilities that operate otherwise than just when you do enough damage to take a KO. So that's kind of interesting. That excites me a little bit. If a character does more than enough attack damage to KO an enemy, does that count? Oh my lordy, yes. As long as you do enough, and we figured this was the case, but it's nice to have it confirmed. Another one of the new skills we see in War for Cybertron Siege 2 is Safeguard. And now this, at the moment, is pretty much an Autobot thing. Weirdly enough, we do actually have an upgrade, Medic's Protective Field, which will give Safeguard to a mercenary or a Decepticon, but it is an Autobot skill, unless you use Medic's Protective Field. Don't worry too much about it. And what it reads at the moment, Safeguard free, cannot take more than 3 damage while undamaged. Well, Hot Rod's got Safeguard free, and Medic's Protective Field gives Safeguard free, and Green Light's got Safeguard free. I mean, the fact that it's called Safeguard free and not Safeguard surely is a strong implication that we might get other numbers in the future. As it stands, it's all free. So what is it? It's a new keyword ability that limits how much damage can be done to an undamaged character, the key being undamaged. Does Safeguard apply to all damage or just attack damage? All damage, including damage done by actions or other abilities. Now, there aren't very many actions or abilities that can actually do more than 3 damage anyway. You know, Bolt of Lightning comes in as a star card. Star cards, the whole point of star cards are that they're really good, and Bolt of Lightning only does 3 damage. Well, the good news is, good news, bad news, depending on what side you're on, I suppose, we have actually got an action card, Overwhelming Advantage, which is coming around in Wave 4 as well. And now it's quite difficult to use. You've got to have one of each 5 pips in upgrades on the attacking character, and you've got to flip all 5 pips while you do so. But then you can do 15 damage to an enemy. Well, an enemy with Safeguard free would only take 3 damage under those circumstances. Does Safeguard work if something tries to move a damage counter onto the character while it is undamaged? So if we take something like Bombing Run, for instance, that's one of the cards we got way back in Wave 1, that allows you to move a damage counter from each of your planes to a particular enemy. So what if you ended up trying to move 4 damage counters, for argument's sake? Does that work? Well, Safeguard doesn't work. Moving damage does not damage the character, although after the damage is moved, the character will be damaged and Safeguard will no longer work. I.e., it's a really nice way to break the Safeguard. Remember, if any damage whatsoever is done, then the Safeguard is broken and you can go nuts. Although please do be nice. Can Safeguard apply to the same character more than once? Oh my lordy, yes. Just so long as a character is undamaged at the time. So one of my favourite cards in Wave 4 is Opportune Repairs, and the reason very simply is Opportune Repairs repairs free damage. And Safeguard Free says that you can only take a maximum of free damage. You see where we're going with this, ladies and gentlemen? It means that you can heal off all the damage done, and then you can just go and have yourself a rather lovely time. Cool. Revenge. Well, Safeguard is what all of the Autobots get. Not all of them, but it is the Autobot ability. Revenge is the, I suppose, Decepticon equivalent would probably be the way to phrase it, although they aren't actually the same things. And we've got to use Raider Rumble as our example here, because that's a card that I was lucky enough to be able to reveal. Raider Rumble in Alt Mode has a Revenge skill, do 2 damage to an enemy. That is to say that when it's KO'd, you do 2 damage. What are Revenge abilities? A Revenge ability is a triggered ability that triggers when the character with the ability is KO'd. There aren't many of them. They're a Decepticon thing. The Decepticons must be up to something. And I'm afraid I have to take issue ever so slightly with the wording of this, because not unlike Medic's Protective Shield, we've got Hazardous Shield, which has a Revenge skill, scrap an enemy weapon or armor. And it might be a Decepticon card in so much as it's got the Decepticon color and it's got the Decepticon logo, but this is not limited to Decepticons. So although it is a Decepticon thing, you can actually use Hazardous Shield to give a Revenge skill to an Autobot or a Mercenary. I don't know why, but things like this really matter to me. Battle Masters and Weaponizers. Now, Battle Masters and Weaponizers, let's take Sergeant Six Gun as an example. This is one of the new style of Weaponizers, whereby it starts in bot mode, and when it is KO'd, it actually turns into 2 different upgrades. Yet apparently one upgrade wasn't enough for some reason. Cool. They are characters that start in bot mode and can be played in their upgrade mode after they are KO'd. They do not have alt modes and cannot flip while they are on the battlefield. They are Transformers that don't transform. Although to be fair, they do transform when they're KO'd, so let's just say their ability to transform is somewhat limited. In this set, there are 2 Weaponizers, each made up of 2 cards. The other one is Brunt, if you are wondering. They start assembled together in bot mode. When one of them is KO'd, it splits into 2 different upgrades that you can then play. The upgrades can be played onto separate characters or onto the same character. Brunt turns into a weapon and an armor, and although Six Gun does turn into 2 weapons, but one of them, MTX S2A Guided Missile Launcher, can be put into an armor or utility slot. So you're good. After a Battle Master or Weaponizer upgrade would leave the battlefield, it is put into your KO area instead. There we go. That's what you need to know. And battle cards in the KO area. Now, there are several cards in this set that cause battle cards to be put into the KO area. And once again, I'm afraid I'm going to have to be just a little bit biased here and use Even the Score. It's one of the cards I was lucky enough to be able to reveal. Cool. And this is one that it's a secret action. You reveal it when one of your Decepticons takes more than enough damage to be KO'd, and when it's revealed, you do the extra attack damage to the attacker. I like it. There is a parallel card here, Heroic Resolve, double blue icon, star card, Autobots, and it essentially keeps them alive with 1 health remaining if they would be KO'd. What does it mean to be put in the KO area? They are essentially out of the game, except if something specifically puts them somewhere else. They are not scrapped, so they won't be reshuffled into your deck when your deck is empty. We do have some cards that do interact with the KO area, but in terms of regular cards, we don't. So over in Wave 3, for instance, we got Quartermaster, which will bring a Battlemaster upgrade back from your KO area into your hand. Important to note, it is only a Battlemaster, not a Weaponizer. And then actually back in Wave 2, so a little while ago here, we had Combat Commands, which allows you to flip one of your Sentinels in the KO area. Generally speaking, all card games have an area outside the scrap pile from which things don't come back, and inevitably over time, mechanics are introduced which bring them back. Expected to happen in Transformers. I mean, look, it happens in every game, right? It's definitely going to happen here. Combiners! Now, Combiners are actually back in Wave 4, having taken Wave 3 off. Omega Supreme is a nice example here. And I like Omega Supreme. I like it mechanically, and I like it as a card, and I think it's cool. I don't actually think it's particularly viable, but I did a video about Omega Supreme. I'll try and remember to link it in the description. So basically, Combiners are teams of characters that can combine into a big character. And in Wave 4, we've got Omega Supreme, that's 3 cards, and Skytread, made up of 2. And they both have different abilities that let their teams combine. So it's not like back in Wave 2 where you would use an Enigma card. Dinobot Enigma as an example because Dinobot's faux life. Not the case here, they all have their own little abilities that do it. When a character is combined, it starts untapped and gets all the damage from the characters that formed it. So if you've got 3 characters with 10 damage on each that form up to make a combiner, you start with 30 damage on. It can keep upgrades from those characters based on the upgrade slots. Unless it says differently, I'm looking at you, Dreadwing, or Predaking, it will have 1 weapon slot, 1 utility slot, and 1 armor slot. You can keep 1 in each slot. And it was confirmed in a previous rules roundup that if you've got a card which is in the wrong slot, let's say mounted missiles, for instance, which can be put into an armor or utility slot, you can bring that over in an armor or utility slot. Even though it is a weapon, you are allowed to bring it over in the correct slot, which is very cool. Now, this is 1 character. When it attacks, it gets tapped, and that is to say the character as a whole. And if it's KO'd, if you're still in the game, it stays in combiner mode in the KO area. Cool. A character in combiner mode cannot flip because there is no other mode. Once they become a combiner, they are just a combiner. Any card that would flip it, let's say your opponent uses a battering ram. Yes, I am quite proud of how many of the cards I was lucky enough to reveal I'm being able to shoehorn into this video. Long may it continue, ladies and gentlemen. Long may it continue. But if something like battering ram says that you get to flip a character, well, you don't, because there's nothing to flip. As it stands at the moment, a character in combiner mode cannot break apart. There is no mechanic that does that. But, you know, maybe in the future it will. So if we have a look at Omega Supreme specifically, we've actually got 3 different cards. We've got the base, the spaceship, and we've got the tank. So the question is, well, Omega Supreme base doesn't have an ability to combine it into Captain Omega Supreme. And that is correct, incidentally. The spaceship, when your opponent reshuffles their deck, if you've got the tank and the base on the battlefield or in your KO area, you can combine. The tank, when your opponent reshuffles their deck, if you've got the spaceship and the base on the battlefield or the KO area, you get to combine. The base doesn't actually have that. What if both the spaceship and tank are KO'd before I get a chance to combine? Well, the abilities don't work from the KO area, so the base would be standing alone, and unless you've got a way to bring the spaceship or the tank back onto the battlefield, you won't be able to combine them. And incidentally, this is the main reason I don't particularly like Omega Supreme, because anyone ever playing against Omega Supreme is just going to leave the base alone, and as soon as they've KO'd the spaceship and the tank, it's basically over at that stage. The spaceship and the tank have very similar abilities to combine into Captain Omega Supreme. What happens if my opponent reshuffles their deck and both abilities would apply? Well, you can only combine once, so the redundant ability is ignored. It doesn't matter which one you choose because they're both the same. So Raider Skytread then, the other one of them there combiners. And again, we've got a fairly unique way of actually going about combining it. The plane has a revenge skill, we've talked about those before. If you've got Skytread tank on the battlefield or in your KO area, you may combine into Raider Skytread. And then if you do, put all the cards from your hand face down under Raider Skytread, and then the tank's got the same ability. Except it interacts with the plane, not the tank. It is the tank. Cool. What happens if my last two characters are the two parts of Skytread, and they're both KO'd at the same time? Do their revenge abilities work and keep me in the game? Nope. Once your last character is KO'd, you lose the game, but having them both KO'd at the same time is pretty unusual. Interestingly enough, overwhelming advantage would do it, but I don't think that's going to work very often. Both revenge abilities put cards from my hand under Raider Skytread. What does this mean? The cards under Raider Skytread are basically out of play for a while. They're not on the battlefield, even that's where they physically are, so none of their abilities apply. If one of the cards is an upgrade, that upgrade isn't on Raider Skytread. They're also not in your scrap pile, so they won't be shuffled into your deck when it's empty. They can be returned to your hand using Raider Skytread's ability. So Raider Skytread, this is post-combination here. When you attack, you may put a face-down card from under it into your hand and move one damage counter from this to the defender. Cool. Now, I do want to just quickly pop over and have a chat about TRYPTICON, and then what we're going to have to do is talk about these specific card FAQs in a video tomorrow, which is probably going to be a fairly beastly video. But I didn't want to literally just do a video where I read the rulings to you, explain them, add a little bit, make them, I like to think, easier to understand. So TRYPTICON then. TRYPTICON is a card, though it's actually a box topper, even though it's technically under the box. And essentially, every time you buy a box, you get a TRYPTICON, and TRYPTICON has three little characters: Brunt, not that Brunt, different Brunt, Full Tilt, and Wipeout, all of which start the game under TRYPTICON. Now, if you start your game with TRYPTICON, if TRYPTICON is your chosen character, you will notice that TRYPTICON is a 24-star character. Incidentally, the reason it's a 24-star character rather than a 25-star character is that they are intending you to play a copy of Relentless Invasion, which has a white, an orange, and a blue icon. And essentially, if you've got TRYPTICON on the battlefield, you put Full Tilt, Wipeout, and Brunt from your KO area onto the battlefield fully repaired. They all attack this turn, and then they go back under TRYPTICON at the end of the turn. It's a way to reuse all of the little characters under TRYPTICON, so he's a 24-star character so that you can play a copy of this. Okay. But what about the fact that Full Tilt is a 4-star character? And Brunt is a 4-star character, and Wipeout is a 4-star character. That's an extra 12 stars. That makes 36 stars. And the answer is, if you choose TRYPTICON as your starting team, you put the other 3 characters under him, and then the stars don't count. And other than that, he's just any other character. Characters under TRYPTICON are not considered on the battlefield, so they cannot attack, the abilities do not work, and essentially what you're doing is just crossing your fingers, hoping that sooner rather than later, you draw into a battlefield incursion, which is the card we've got in the set that allows you to liberate these characters from under. The good news is you've got a green icon there, which means if you flip it while attacking or defending, you can swap a card in your hand for it. It means that if you don't draw into it, you can still make sure it ends up in your hand. That is a very good thing. So the battle card Battlefield Incursion allows you to deploy characters from under TRYPTICON to the battlefield. When they enter the battlefield, they are untapped and in ult mode, just as if you'd started a game with them. And they can attack the same turn they are deployed, because you go to attack on that turn, and you have untapped characters, and at the end of your turn, you can attack with any untapped character, including those. If they are KO'd, they go straight to the KO area, but remember that you can get them back. Incidentally, if TRYPTICON is KO'd, then unfortunately all the ones under it are KO'd as well. And finally, does Brunt have a bot mode? Nope, he's a drone. Think of him like Slammer from the Metroplex deck. There ain't no bot mode here, ladies and gentlemen. All we have is a silly little drone with no bot mode. So there we go. That is the FAQ in terms of categories. We will come back and do an FAQ for particular cards very, very soon. And by very, very soon, I mean tomorrow. There's a lot of rules to go through, a lot of stuff to do, and rather than rush through, I'd like to take me time and make sure we go through them all properly. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about this, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk Transformers and Keyforge and Final Fantasy and Pokemon and any games that take our fancy, to be honest. And do please make sure you're checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.